um, who I am, like from like professionally or just like my worldview or.
Like, who are you?
There's a moment in anger management when he's just like, I'm a nice guy, and like, but who are you? And then he loses. Never mind, you didn't see that.
I'm back. Oh, hello, new guy. TJ92.
What do you believe now, dude? Freaking, it's been a while since we talked.
Yeah, that's been a while. Well, I'd say like back when I was regularly in the Council of Google Plus Hangouts, I saw like a lot of good arguments for Calvinism and stuff, but I would have said like I was probably largely not for it, and now I'm probably even less so, but I'm definitely open to hearing. Like I still read the Bible. I believe it's inspired by God.
But your tag says theist.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like a Christian particularist.
So why are you even debating Calvinism?
Well, I just like learning about the Bible, and I like discussion.
No, he's saying, are you a Christian or not?
But he's not.
Well, he doesn't have a tag.
No, I mean, he just said it right there. You're not listening?
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he just said that he would say that he's a
Calm your tits, Grim. It's a conversation. So, yeah, TJ, I'd agree with Grim. Like, what's your... you just seem to think like the Bible is more of like a weird study thing?
Well, I believe it's inspired by God, but I don't. I guess I have more of a liberal interpretation, and I read different texts too, like not just in Christianity but elsewhere.
He's
like what?
Well,
Such as?
Yeah.
We kill liberals here.
Wait, what other texts?
Well, pretty much all the known ones. I mean, I'm not an expert really in any of them. I just dabble in everything, you know, from the monotheisms to pantheism to New Age, everything in between, UFOs, you know, consciousness research, that kind of thing, and mysticism, Freemasonry. I'd say like
So you watch
I try not to
Aliens?
put.
Is that what you're getting at?
What's that?
So you watch Ancient Aliens on History Channel? What are you trying to get here?
I don't know if I've seen a full episode of that. I study a lot of similar stuff, but
yeah, well, I mean, all these things are wrong, but
oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Do you see how all those
starting
things
off
are
with bad
contradictory?
news already?
Oh man, I saw your post, but I didn't see anybody respond to it.
I'm still a little. So let's unpack some of these things. What other? So you seem to think
12
reminds
applies.
me of one of those like weird eclectic thinkers.
I like Nolan's styles.
Grim, be quiet.
Yeah, I'm pretty eclectic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you
Why do you do that? Like a lot of these beliefs are contradictory to one another. I mean, polytheism, monotheism, pantheism. They're contradictory.
Well, I would label myself as theism, like in that I believe God is like immanent in reality. He's not just like outside of it, and he's not like just the universe. But I think that's a problem too in how we define it. It's because we really don't know where the universe stops and where the super universe begins, or we don't know where the natural world ends and the supernatural world. Like we don't have these demarcations, I don't believe. So labels kind of break down. Like, how would you define like the supernatural?
Well, that's a tough because that could be made up of the divine being or various other things like angels and demons. Those are supernatural, but I don't like I can't think of a way of defining it off the top of my head. But I don't think that was the question. The question is, why do you just randomly go and through a bunch of religions and just arbitrarily pick and choose out of what you feel like is right and true in some of them and not in others. Why do you do that?
Well, I kind of like I do still value rationality, but I understand how it doesn't really appear to be the most rational approach. But I don't know. I guess I believe in kind of more like some type of reincarnation and stuff. So we have more than one life to figure everything out, and we live different lives with different temperaments and histories and lessons to learn. So that's why there's variations in worldviews and stuff.
How do you know that?
Well, it's like I'm not sure if it started off as an intuition verified by data, or if I was, because like I wasn't a blank slate, so it's not like the empirical data fully plays a role in it, but I think it matches with my intuitions.
What empirical data matches with your intuition that there's this long process of reincarnation?
Well, like there's like past life regressions and I believe different, like you could say
that's just to reassert there's reincarnation, but that's a very issue in debate.
Oh, you mean like what's the syllogism?
Well, yeah, I suppose. Where's your argument?
Or are you saying it's only rational to believe something if you have an argument for it?
It's only rational if you have a justification. I mean, if you
I agree.
Like, no offense, I'm just not going to take your intuition, right?
Yeah,
a lot of people have been, it's very intuitive for like our Parmenides to say, there's only one thing. And that's what the demands of reason, right? But a lot of people ever since said that's not very intuitive, right? So actually, throughout human thought, you can see everybody has competing intuitions. So it's not very compelling, but in your case, it's very uncompelling actually, because I don't have any intuitions that there's this reincarnation process.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have some basis.
Well, to draw an analogy, and this is just kind of a shot in the dark. It would be kind of akin to you having an intuition of how to properly interpret the Bible, kind of thing, right? Like you can't. The Bible doesn't interpret itself, and it doesn't interpret you. The Bible doesn't force you to interpret it a different way. You'd probably agree with that, right? Like where does your
I'm not sure if we
come from?
Yeah, I'm not sure we intuit hermeneutical principles. I think we have to
Okay.
read through them. So I don't agree, but
Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm not using the word intuit properly, but I guess I broadly mean it in terms of like our internal guidepost, because like there's no like hermeneutic principle floating around out there objectively. I don't believe anyway. And like things like Calvinism and stuff come from a very particular hermeneutical tool set, I guess.
I would just disagree, but I don't see how that salvages your position. Like, I'm still asking for the rational basis by which we know reincarnation is the case. Who's going to reassert it? Right, your whole worldview relies on this assumption that people are just reincarnated from one body to the next through some weird process of an endless goal to reach some enlightenment weird thing. I don't think that's intuitive. So okay, where's your argument?
Well, it's like I think it'd be best if I try to like bridge gaps. So like one would be like the Bible itself says that we live beyond our bodies, or at least we live beyond what we traditionally call a lifetime.
Yeah.
So we both
though it agrees that humans are more than the body, it doesn't say that we're reincarnated into an endless process through reincarnation.
No.
Plus, the biblical writers clearly themselves believe that the Judeo-Christian monotheistic God was in fact the only true God. So there's no other like reincarnated forms of Yahweh. They're not Hinduistic in any sense. So I'm not compelled by that analogy because it's disanalogous. But or at least if you're trying to establish that the Bible speaks nothing of reincarnation.
So, like, you're pointing to the I think it's in Romans, it's appointed for men to die once and then the judgment. Would that be like the biggest kind of showstopper kind of thing?
That's in Hebrews, but
oh, okay.
So I'm just speaking about you're putting a Hinduistic paradigm on a Judeo-Christian text, but there's no warrant for that. Like, what passage warrants reincarnation?
Well, the only passage that I find problematic to it would be the Hebrews verse, like it's appointed for men to die once, but I'm sure if I looked at it carefully enough, I could interpret it consistently to support my view, but maybe not. I don't know. But the thing like current data, like UFO phenomena and like channeling, like kind of quote paranormal stuff, like beings that are more intelligent and more enlightened than us. They've given us certain insight, so I would say that they're fairly credible sources. If I agree with their principles of like.
So like the old ladies at a table holding hands and it begins to float are like a credible source.
Again, sorry.
I don't. What's a credible source?
Oh, like what I'd call like ascended masters, like enlightened beings, like like Jesus, Buddha, stuff like that. Beings that display obviously that they're not regular people.
Yeah, this is just to get back. I'm not granting any of it. This is the whole point of me challenging your reincarnation. I'm challenging your worldview in total.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in this. Like, give me proof for the system. Where's your argument? Like, I don't believe in this reincarnation process where these are special figures. They have special enlightenment with special information. They're all sort of this inclusivistic worldview. Like, and plus, how does this not just reduce to contradictions? Like, each of these thinkers said contradictory things to one another. So, I mean, throughout human thought, you'd have either this being who's revealing all these things to these special key figures throughout time is completely is a deceiver. He's a liar. He contradicts himself. So he's not even trustable. So your worldview reduces to incoherencies.
Well, I think nefarious beings definitely have played a part for sure, but I don't really see like.
I'm talking about the being you're presenting as. Are you presenting a monotheism, or what are you even presenting? Some pantheism?
Well, monotheism in the sense like there's only one, like God is indivisible.
God is indivisible. So
that's mono.
Like, usually monotheism is just a reference that you believe there is one being that is God. Now, the nature of that being, do you believe God is the world? Do you believe God is a transcendent being? Well, you actually earlier said he's immanent, so I'm assuming he's actually just the world. That's what I'm assuming you're a pantheist.
Wait, what's freaking Justin Wilson's Discord username?
Adventure for me, something.
Yeah, he just joined the Telltale server.
Oh, let him go. Let him talk. All right, this is great. I love it. So, freaking TJ. Yeah, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm not compelled at all. I think I've given an objection based on the teachers you probably prop up. Each of them said contradictory messages. That means whatever being is revealing things to them, whether it be the world or some Spinozian type being, is a liar, isn't trustable. Like, he tells them contradictory things. Are you saying contradictory things can be true, that what you're saying?
Well, I do believe I do have some foundations that aren't that are inconvertible, like the principle of service to others as opposed to service to self. Like it's in the law of one and different things. Like so and there these kind of messages that you find in virtually all religions and worldviews and stuff, like these common threads, but then a lot of the details get either lost in translation or it's different egos getting in the way. Like I don't claim that God is like a
so you explain away the
contradictory
wait. So you explain the contradictory messages all the way by just egos and other people. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like I don't see God as like just like
do you have a non-arbitrary way of demarcating? Okay. Do you have a non-arbitrary way of demarcating the messages from your higher being to that of all the messages from these other beings?
I'd say no.
Then your worldview is false. You just lost it. Like I mean, at that point you lose everything. I mean,
says who?
Sure, you can't say anything about your God. There's no revelation. You don't even know if he exists. That's pretty much, if he doesn't speak to you, he's no different from just not existing at that point.
Well, I know I exist, and I can imagine myself not existing.
Well, do you?
I think there's no alternative.
There's an alternative. Here's an alternative. You don't exist.
Don't kill me.
What?
We won't. Oh, I thought you were gonna whack me.
I don't think he's talking to us because we are not physically around him to whack him.
This is true.
My point is, whatever worldview you're coming from, friend, is wrong. It's incoherent. You can't establish anything what you said. Your theology, your whole meta narrative for the world is just arbitrary whim. Like none of what you said. Well, is there any non-arbitrary way of demarcating what your being said? No. So you're just picking and choosing, or you just randomly. You're like the Jefferson Bible. You just randomly cut out things, and freaking you make up stuff. No offense, but that's pretty much what you got. And that's just silly.
Well, was Jefferson, like, he was a Freemason, he was probably drawing off other traditions as well.
Probably not. Probably just winged it.
Egyptian.
Probably just cut out the parts he liked, just like you do. But at that point, it's just, sure, religion's just your whim. Like, you believe what you want to believe, and that's fine, but it's irrational. Like,
so what's, how do you define rational?
Something that's rational would be something that has a logical basis. Right? It's not contradictory. It follows proper rules of inference, things like that. You're not doing any of those things. You're going arbitrarily. You're just arbitrarily picking beliefs, which is just wrong at at the start.
So.
I like reincarnation, so I'll steal that from over there. I like some Christian messages about love and peace, so I'll steal that over there and just put a jumbled mess for this one being I don't know anything about. And it's imminent. It's in the world. We see it. You haven't even explained how you know it's in the world. Is it like something seeable? Do you see this being? Do you have mystical experience?
Well, I see mystical patterns, and I've had mystical experiences. And
mystical patterns.
Yeah, like numerology and
numerology,
more mystical interpretations of scripture and stuff.
How do you know anything? Numerology is not just indistinguishable. How do you distinguish numerology from just coincidence?
Well, it's kind of like a cumulative case. Like it matches certain concepts, and then you just kind of run, like, I guess you kind of have to do a bit of probability calculus, but I don't have that down too solid.
Yeah, how do you distinguish? So basically, you're saying that if it's improbable, therefore it's not coincidence.
Well, I kind of agree with the Jungian. like what does he call it?
The archetype?
Well, like he has a book called Synchronicities, and he talks about like acausal happenings, I guess, or occurrences. So like things that aren't caused by our normal idea of space and time causation. So, but they're still linked in terms of meaning and pattern and stuff. So they're linked. They're not linked based on like space and time causal arrow, but more so they're linked in terms of meaning and pattern and stuff like that.
Yeah, before you could even do psychology, you'd have to have a rational worldview with a good anthropology to do such. I don't think you have that. But I also think psychology is like a ridiculous field of study anyways. So I don't take it serious. But to continue along with this, I still, you don't find anything strange that you just arbitrarily pick beliefs? Or, like, this is, oh, like, you think there's nothing wrong with that? Like, I believe there's a purple elephant revealing things to everybody right now that you're wrong. And your God just revealed to me that, you're wrong. Like, you have no basis to disagree with me, right?
Well, I hope that hasn't been my method. Like, I have good positive reasons to believe.
You said numerology, but
yeah.
What numerology? You count pyramid steps or something? What patterns?
Well, I mean,
what patterns?
I haven't really. Well, I mean, like your summation of my methods, that I was just addressing that, and
I don't think you adequately addressed that. You said the only objective criterion you provided was numerology, and numerology is just like, other than the tinfoil hat people. Well, what makes numerology a credible field? Like, why do I believe this is actually a belief mechanism that leads me to truth? Like, who the hell ever said numerology mattered? Like, I don't know. I think
what's in like the Kabbalah, like Jewish mysticism and Egyptian. And
Kabbalah? Who said Kabbalah?
Like,
I don't accept Kabbalah. What's your argument for that?
Well, there's a lot of links that Kabbalah influenced the canon.
So what?
Like in Alexandria, like you have Philo, and I forget the other guy. There was two main scribes in Alexandria.
So.
Well, and even Christ says, like, dark sayings of old, and there's different rabbinic interpretations as well. Like, I think, was there like 4 levels, like the Yod and the Sod, and there's like 4 different levels of interpretation, like the plain literal and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I've just been prioritizing the more.
Well, since you're a relativist when it comes to interpretation, I could just interpret that any way I want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that just defeats your whole case again. So, I mean, like, again, this is not doing you good.
Well, let's take the courtroom analogy. Like, are you saying the evidence that I'm bringing to court is inadmissible, or even worse, that the way we evaluate whether or not evidence is admissible?
I'm saying if what you're saying was true, you couldn't even have evidence. And, all your beliefs are self-defeating. So yes, it's like if you came to a courtroom and you shot yourself in the head, pretty much like that. It doesn't do you good, but at least you showed up. I mean, that's congrats, but
yeah,
this has not been a good performance.
So can I respond? Like, can you, instead of me being on the defensive, can you try to convince me of, let's say, a staple worldview or a staple tenet of Calvinism? I haven't really looked into it.
I don't really want to argue Calvinism because it's not. Well, that's what I was doing actually. I was presupping your worldview because it's not a Christian worldview. It's incoherent, and like you just sound like a washed over Jordan Peterson. and
you just need to go clean your damn room.
In the words of Tofi, I agree there. I don't know how to go any further with it. I just invite you to believe what the Bible actually says and take its word as authoritative. When it says what it says, there's an objective way of understanding that. It's not relativistic interpretations. Sure, there's many of them, but that doesn't imply that each interpretation is as good as another. I would, yeah, the life, the story of Jesus Christ is a historical event. It's not to be understood in archetypes or some weird metaphorical way. No, Jesus Christ really did die on a cross for sinners. So I mean, if you're going to interpret that any other way, I mean, you're just closing yourself out the kingdom for no reason. So I'm just inviting you to place your faith in what Jesus Christ did on the cross.
Oh, well, I never said that I don't agree that happened historically.
I know you don't agree it happened historically. The point is, the way you look at the world already demeans it of its value or what it actually means, right? You already come to this with a non-Christian interpretation of these events, right? This is some weird process by which some archetype is discovered. Not that God is, become incarnate and died for his people. It's not that. Of course, it couldn't be the actual gospel, or if it is, it's just of psychological significance, not soteriological. But that misses the mark.
Well, I don't view God as so like other kind of thing. Like I believe we're all kind of like we're all fragments of God. So He's like the ground of being and life and stuff.
You're a pantheist. I get it, but that's just incoherent again. God is clearly different from us, and the Bible establishes that. God has the eternal domain. That's where Jesus Christ actually comes down from. That's the whole coming down from the mountain theme in John. That's clearly thought, and that's why that's actually the thought behind, I guess, recent studies and why Jesus is called the Word. It comes from the Old Testament, but in Jewish targums, it's often accommodated for that theme, coming down from the eternal domain of God, coming down from the mountain. And God is completely different from us. That's just basic Isaiah theology. God is not like his pagan neighbors, which would be what you would reduce him to. He's not a created thing. He's not a space being in space and time. He's a transcendent God of the universe. That's just classical theism.
Well, that's. I mean, I am sympathetic with that idea. I mean, I don't believe, like, I don't think you can. I don't think we're capable in this, let's say, domain or our stage of spiritual evolution to be able to demarcate like where God stops and whatever takes over. There probably is no.
You can't demarcate it. If you don't know where that occurs, then you can't even state that God isn't, just as I said, a classical theistic God. So, I mean, you just nowhere, dead in the water again.
Well, I mean, I can't prove it 100%, but I have my reasons.
Okay, tell me, what does he stop at the Barnes and Noble? Does he stop at the? Go ahead, I'm serious. Where does he stop and the world begin? Or is he just the world? And if he's just the world, then you have a contradiction again. The Bible reveals God as a God of certain attributes. Those attributes are contradictory to creaturely attributes.
Like I would say the attributes of each member of the Trinity is clearly different than us as humans, for sure. And I think it's probably even more complicated than that, too. It doesn't necessarily stop at the Trinity.
I don't get your point.
Like, I just mean, like God presented as in the Bible is presented in the Trinitarian view. And I have no problem with that.
I'm aware I'm a Trinitarian, as you may know. But I don't know. I agree. I'm a Trinitarian, but I don't know how that establishes your point. So what? Sure, Bible teaches the Trinity. Doesn't mean any of those refutations I said of your worldview aren't true. They're all true. Right. So I'm asking, where in the world, what density is God? Is he a fine powder? Is he a mist? Does he weigh a brick? How much does he weigh? No. Can you cut him? Can you eat him? Is he divisible?
No.
Oh, okay. Then again, so he's just not like, as the Bible says, he's a spirit. He's not a spatial temporal thing.
Well, right. No, I agree. It's kind of like I'm thinking of the verse like, knock and you what's it? Come and you shall receive, or whatever, or come knock at the door, that kind of thing. Like I think God manifests itself in many different ways, or what we usually call God, because we call it God because it seems like an other being, because it clearly, the attributes presented are clearly different. But in terms of the ground of being, I think it's the same ground of being, like the same ontology. But we're all at different stages, and we all, different. We all have different knowledge, and we have different, I guess, lessons that we're here to learn. So, based on our, let's say, temperament and our level of consciousness, we kind of that's what elicits how God looks to us. So it's kind of like a symbiotic.
Is God an elevated man in your view? I mean, that's what you're describing. He's just like us, but more evolved or more spiritually evolved. I mean, that's what you sound like you're positing.
Yeah, I mean, not the physical aspect, but it's pretty anthropomorphic because, but that's based on, like, I'm not saying the ultimate, let's say, fountainhead of God is some man in the sky or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, as far as our,
not a man, just a being that's been spiritually evolved.
Well, I think to some degree God changes because, if you're in a relationship with anyone or anything, then you change. Otherwise, there's no sense of being in a relationship. So, so we're in a communion kind of thing with the ground of being, the source of, love and truth, and et cetera, et cetera. So
everything you're
change.
describing is not the same God we describe. I mean, it's not even close. You have butchered every attribute of God that's known to man.
Like in terms of traditional Christianity, or? So can you guys let me be on the receiving end of, or can you guys defend tag, like, is in terms of like a positive case for Calvinism?
Well, I mean,
that's like weird. Yeah.
If you want to, I'll just do it now. Just take 5 seconds. Since you're a relativist when it comes to interpretation, Calvinist interpretation is the one I prefer. Therefore, the Calvinist interpretation is right. Debate over. I mean, that's the problem with your worldview. It leaves you no ground to argue tag, and it doesn't allow you to. Once you take away any objective criterion to demarcate truth from falsity, you have excused yourself from the debate table. No offense, but that's basically what happens. It's just pure irrationality. That's why, sure, Calvinism is a big deal. I mean, I guess we could talk about it, but I mean, for one, it misses the whole point of the issue. The problem is your worldview. And tag is usually used to demonstrate just that Christian theism is true, but if we have to go further, I think it proves, the Calvinist is correct. He properly interprets the Bible, but of course, we don't agree on what constitutes a proper interpretation. And only in your worldview it would be, instead of being an objective and a matter of soundness, it'd only be us trying to psychologically convince one another, right? We're only in it for the mind games, for relativists at this point, and I don't think we're going to get any.
Right. Yeah. No, I shouldn't have mentioned Calvinism. You're right. I'm interested in hearing you. Like, I've seen lots of Matt Slick's debates and stuff, so rehash, like, in your words, how you would, like, let's say we're on stage together and you're providing a positive case for the Christian God generally using tag. Do you mind? Because I'm a bit rusty.
That would be my positive case to what you've provided.
So it's like a debunking.
Yeah, it's just my reduction of your worldview. And then I just tell you, you don't have to live with that. It's a silly belief. You can just believe the gospel, believe in Christianity, believe in the Bible, believe that it is the Word of God, believe in Reformed Protestantism. I mean, even not. Protestantism would be fine. You don't have to accept Calvinism. But to accept the historicity and the serious claims of Jesus Christ in its context, in which the apostles would have believed it, not in some weird Jungian faction, and actually read the Bible. Like, no, like, to this whole Jungian thing is just ridiculous. Like, imagine a newspaper came up and freaking, you're reading this from 12 years ago or sometime when we're at war. And you read it, it says, 5 soldiers, die in Iraq, IED. And freaking you read that, you put on your Jungian glasses and you start reading it and you go, oh, I see. It's talking about the struggles of the dialectical tensions between the feminists and the non-feminists in discussing